Guys, I want you to remember before we get started that we are sponsored by SeatGeek. Yes, SeatGeek is now officially sponsoring Three Bold Takes. Guys, we are so glad to let you know that with your first purchase with SeatGeek, you get $20 off using our code Three Bold Takes. SeatGeek's perfect for any kind of live events, whether that's sports, entertainment like music, or even like local plays that you would want to go to. I use them for every sporting event I've gone to. I've never been disappointed. They give me great information on the tickets, whether it's a good price or not, before I ever purchase it. It is the only way that I buy tickets. So, guys, remember use SeatGeek. Our code Three Bold Takes get $20 off your first purchase. All right, guys, we are going to wrap everything up with our predictions this week as we head out to what is objectively the best named rivalry game in the sport. We got Farmageddon in Ames, Iowa, between the Kansas State Wildcats and the Iowa State Cyclones. Iowa State, a 2.5 point favorite. Massive implications on the outside perimeter of the Big 12 here. Obviously, with Colorado's loss and BYU's loss, it's really kind of opened the field back up. Chase, how are you feeling about this matchup between the Cyclones and the Wildcats in Farmageddon?
Mm.
Again, best name in the sport, hands down.
Yeah, actually, that might be the best name in sport. Quinn, I'm not going to lie to you. That actually is really good. Haven't heard that one before. If you're new to the channel, you've been watching for a while, I always say it. Quinn somehow knows every single named rivalry there is in college sports. You have a question, leave it in the comments. Quinn will tell you sooner or later. It's insane that he knows these things. I never would have guessed. Anyway, two teams tell of two different seasons. Honestly, Iowa State rose from the ashes out of nowhere. Nobody expected half their stuff undefeated for a long period of time before losing their first game to Texas Tech in November. And then Kansas State, who we thought, hey, all these other powers are moving out of the way. No Texas, no Oklahoma. You really got to get over the hump of Utah, and Kansas State's dropped a few games that they shouldn't have. Losing to BYU and Houston, first of all, but then also losing to now, you guys didn't know, number one in the Big 12, Arizona State, just a couple weeks ago. So shout out to Arizona State and what they've done this season. But uh, sorry guys. Anyway, and this game's pretty interesting though. I think it's another one that's got good implications. Iowa State still has a chance to move up and down. Has a chance to play in the Big 12 championship game as well. Kansas State can play spoiler there. However, I just haven't seen a lot out of either of these teams on both sides. Kansas State has lost a couple of these mediocre games that they shouldn't have, and Iowa State's played a lot close. I'm gonna, gosh, man, I'm gonna probably ride here with the Wildcats. I think their defense usually is in place enough to where they can compete in these games. The offense doesn't have to do way too much. Um, to win these games. Iowa State's played a lot close. Yes, they're ranked. Yes, they've had a good season. But when you look at who they've played a lot of the lower tier teams. Later on, they beat Iowa. That's the most significant one early on in the season. But besides that, um, they played Kansas, who they lost to. But at that point, I think it was like 2-6, 2-7. Cincinnati, Utah, UCF. Like a lot of those teams have since who we thought it was gonna be a really tough schedule has since fallen off a little bit. For me, I'm gonna hold on to Kansas State and the Wildcats. I think they get it done in this Farmageddon matchup, like Quinn mentioned.
Yeah, I think this game is going to come down to a couple things. Obviously, for Kansas State, it's going to be Avery Johnson and how he plays. When you look at the season so far for him, obviously they got demolished by BYU, fourth game of the year. He only had 130 passing yards. They had less than 100 yards rushing as a team. BYU just straight up manhandled them. However, they did get 14 points off of some fluky plays, so you could take that into account as well in that one. Against Houston, Johnson had 238 passing yards, but again, 50 yards rushing in the game. You look at Arizona State, they lost 24-14. Johnson 258 passing yards. You ran for a little bit better, 133 yards on the ground. I think in this game, listen, Kansas State was my pick to win the Big 12. Okay, that didn't work out. None of our picks for the Big 12 is going to work out in this game. I am going to stick with my pick here. I think Iowa State's fallen off ever since their hot start. I'm going to go Kansas State to win. And after, they they beat the brakes off of Cincinnati, 41-15, 150 passing yards from Johnson, 150 odd rushing yards for them on the ground. I think that's the key. If they can run the ball and not have to rely on Avery Johnson to have to throw the ball to win, I think we've got a bloodbath on our hands for Kansas State. I'm not going to predict that, but I think Kansas State wins by a solid 7 points in this game.
All right, look, there's no secret about me here. I have a deep, deep love for the Iowa State Cyclones that resides way down here in my heart. 30-year dynasty with the Clones on NCAA 14. I'm very proud of that fact. 29 straight BCS national championships. What does that have to do with real life? Absolutely nothing. But it does mean that when I look at any game, I look at it with scarlet and yellow glasses on. And I think the Clones have got a dominated win over Iowa early in the year, big win on the Cyhawk Trophy. And this is your other major rivalry game. You win it, you got a shot at the Big 12 title game and a chance to put yourself back in the playoff picture. In a season where no one talked about Iowa State as a playoff caliber team, because frankly they're not. Nobody in the Big 12 is, but that's a discussion for another day. Look, I'm taking Iowa State, and the reason I'm taking Iowa State in this game, home field advantage. All right, scarlet and yellow glasses. All right, and then Kansas State, man, they are inconsistent. They show up and they play poorly against teams. Like, who thought that Kansas State was going to struggle so bad with Houston? All right, Houston's terrible. So yeah, I like the Cyclones to get it done in a big rivalry game with a lot on the line for them. Whereas Kansas State's just kind of meandering at the end of their season. If this game was in Manhattan, we'd be having a different discussion. But with it being in Ames, I'm taking the Clones to get a win.
Hey, one last thing here. Shout out my father-in-law. He is a Kansas State fan from Kansas, and he told me today, "Hey, did you know Kansas State has the same record as Alabama?" So,
Fun.
little
Yeah.
gloating there. So
Yeah.
shout out to you.
Not the same schedule, I would add, but same record, yes. So that being said, guys, we got 2 Kansas State, 1 Iowa State here in the Farmageddon predictions. Remember to use our code 3BoldTakes to get 20% off your first purchase with SeatGeek. I've been Quinn, joined with Freddie and Chase, and we're out of here.